Today, I'm going to demonstrate how I make my odd count peyote carrier beads. It's a peyote strip wrapped around a plastic or acrylic carrier bead made into all kinds of projects. I'm going to show you today how I do odd count peyote the simple way. Since we're following a chart, these are the charts, and on my website I have several different colorways. Today I'm going to actually follow the chart, and by following the chart I don't have to do the turn at the end. So I have three colors: a green, a gold, and a dark green. There are two types of carrier beads. There are acrylic and glass. The glass carrier beads are somewhat smaller than the acrylic. The acrylic takes 7 columns and 50 rows, so it's perfect for odd count peyote. If you're going to do even count peyote, I would suggest using the glass carrier beads because they take 6 columns, which is even, by 48 rows. They're a little bit more rounded. You can see they're just slightly smaller, but not much. But today we're going to be using the acrylic. This one is an amber color. I'm using 4-pound fire line and a thread conditioner. Even though I'm using fire line, I'm using a thread conditioner because the holes on the delicas are small, and over a period of time it will wear on the thread depending how tight you pull it. So I do put some thread conditioner on there so it will not catch and will slide through smoothly. I'm also using one of my peyote starter patches. It's similar to using a quick start peyote strip, the paper strips that you can buy online. So I'm going to be using that today. So the first thing we're going to do is take our little patch, and I'm going to, you know how we do a stopper bead? I'm basically going to do like a stopper bead right here. I'm just going to go in and back in again. And that's kind of going to hold this thread out of the way. I'm going to go through another couple of beads down here on the bottom. My thread wants to catch on everything on this desk. And then through this one. Okay. Now just going to turn it and go to the top. This is where we're going to work. We're going to create our pattern here. So I'm going to go in about, let's say, 4 of these little sticking up beads. Just like that. Okay, so this is where I'm going to start my pattern. And because I'm following the pattern and not the written row instructions, I can see that my first row is going to be a light green, a light green, a light green, and a dark. So I'm going to pick up 3 light greens and a dark and lay them right here. So I know that that's my first row. Okay, now my second row is coming back from the left, is going to be 1 dark and 2 lights. So I'm going to pick up another dark and 2 lights and place them right here. So that's my third row. Now my fourth row will be coming back from the right again, and it's 2 light greens, a dark, and a gold. So I'm going to pick up 2 lights, a dark, and a gold. So I know that's what it's going to take to fill in my first 3 rows. So I pick up my little patch, I pick up my light green, and I go right into this next hole as if I were continuing this peyote pattern right here. I would go right into the next one, just like that. Snug it down. Don't pull it too tight because you want your strip to be real pliable, but yet you don't want any gaps. Picked up the next, go into the next hole, pick up the next one, the next sticking up bead, and then the dark. Okay, so that's our first 4 beads of our pattern. 3 lights and a dark. Now I'm just going to turn around, pull those not real tight, but just tap them to make sure they're all seated. Now, don't worry about going back over this bead to get into where you're working, because we're going to unzip this whole thing and it won't matter that this is going over, it's encompassing this white bead. It will not matter. So we're going to go in the door right here, the dark bead, and get inside of our strip. So our next row is a dark, tap, a light, and a light. Now this is just a regular peyote turn here, so there's nothing strange or different about this. We're coming back from the other way, so we pick up our light green, go into the sticking up bead. Next, pull that down neatly. The next one, go into the next bead. Our dark one, go into the next bead. Okay, now here's our first place that is different. It's not regular peyote. This is where you would normally have your go in and make your figure 8 turn. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to go ahead and step down and come out this hole. Now we're on the end. Okay, turn our work. And we know this row is not complete because this gold bead is still here. So the gold bead is going to have to be put in. So you're just going to take it, pick up the gold bead. You're going to go into this next green because it's the closest one that's sticking out. And pull that in. Now you have nowhere to go because you're not in a position to add a bead. So you're just going to go ahead and step up and go out the next bead. Now, when we continue from here, going this direction, we're leaving this one out. So on our pattern, this is where we are right here. We've just put that in, and we've come out here. So we're going to have to add, we're skipping this gold bead. We'll get it when we come back. And then we got a dark and a light. So our next bead here in the pattern is going to be a dark bead. Just like that. And then our next one is going to be a light bead. Okay. I keep pulling this tail a little bit to make sure that end stays down right there. Okay, so there's what we have so far in our pattern. Now we're coming back from the other way. We know how the beads are going to sit on top of each other because we can see it in the pattern. So I know on top of this 2 green beads is another green bead. So I'm going to have 3 in a row there. So I have a green, I'm going to have a dark, I'm going to have a gold, and a gold. Okay, so I like to always work away from me like this. So I'm going to pick up my light bead. It's the next one in the chart. Okay, so I have, now sitting on top of these 2 is a dark one, according to my chart. So I'll pick up a dark. It goes here. All right, so now I have another situation where I have no bead to go into. So I'm going to have to step down, and sitting on top of this single dark bead here is supposed to be a gold. So I'm going to pick up a gold and go out the hole and out the door. Just like that. Now I'm on the outside again. So I'm going to turn my work. Now sitting on top of this gold bead I know is another gold bead according to the pattern. So I'll pick up a gold, go in this gold, and the next bead is also a gold. Now I'm at a point where there's no adjoining hole. So I'm going to have to, I'm coming out right here, I'm going to have to step up and pick up my green and go out. There we have it. So you can see I have my pattern going. And now I'm sort of almost at a normal turn. And this has 4 greens in a row, so I know that there's going to be a green there. And I want to make sure that my edges are the best beads. So if you can cull them as you go, that's great. Or if you want to go through your whole stack first, I recommend it for these kind of projects. Now, right here I have nothing to go into, so I'm going to have to step down. Alright, so I know that this triangle makes 3 beads this way and 3 beads that way. So I know this one cannot be a gold bead, and then the green encompasses it, looking at the pattern, so I know it has to be a dark green. Okay, and then in this triangle is a gold, and I go out. Okay, I turn my work, and my pattern indicates that this one should be gold. And I'm going to snug my work down. I do that by pulling the last one that I just added on the edge and just kind of grabbing the 2 strings together and pulling like that. Just enough to tug it. You don't want to pull it so tight that your work gets crinkled. Okay, our next one is dark. I go right there. Then I'm going to pick up a green. It goes here. And now I really have, again, nowhere to go. So I need to get outside so I can come back in this bead here. So I'm going to step down and go out. Turn my work. And then I'm going to come back in this top bead right here. And I'm ready to go straight across. And this will be no odd changes because there's no stepping up or stepping down. It's just this row is a light green, a light green, and a dark green. Now I'm back to almost a regular peyote. It's going to come here and we're going to repeat what we did before. Dark. Okay, and looking at my pattern, I'm going to refer to my pattern now. And you can see where we are. We're right here. We have our dark green, our light green, and our gold in the middle. So we're coming out right here out of this bead currently. That's where we are now. And we're getting ready to add the bead that is above this one, which is a light green. So the next bead would be light, light, dark on this row. So now we're coming out of this dark bead. So the next one is a light. And the next one is a light. And here we have our strange end, so we're going to step down. Okay, now we're coming back, and I know that there's 4 in this column, and then starts another one of the little triangles. So there's a dark bead on the end. I'm going to flip the work over. I'm going to go into the next bead, and here I have to step up and skip this first one right here. I'm skipping that bead, going into the next. The next one is light green, and the next one is light green. You see the pattern emerging, makes it easier to follow. And there's one light green between each one of these little pyramids, so I know that this edge has a light green. And another one here. And I am culling some of these as I go. Alright, so now here we are at a point again where we're needing to step down. And then to form this tiny triangle is a green, so I know that this next one is green. And I've gone outside again, ready to come back in. Alright, now this little triangle has a gold in the middle, so I know that this next one is gold. Right there, and the next one is green. So by just following the visual of the pattern, and looking at the columns instead of actually counting the rows and doing the turn. Now, if you were wanting to do the turn, of course, the old-fashioned way, not just going forward, you would follow the row lines here and just check them off as you do each one. Once you get going in the pattern, you can see the repeats, and so when you get to right here, you can see that all you got to do is look back there. You don't have to keep referring to your pattern because you're going to come out to the end. So let's just continue working on that, and when we get down to the end, I'll check back and we will go from there. Alright, I'm almost at the end. Have just a couple more rows to finish out what my pattern is, which is this right here. So I have, it's actually coming like this way if you were looking at it. Left are these three sticking out light greens. So I'm going to step up, step down, and go out, and come back in. So these three will all be on the same row. So I have a green, a green, and a green. And that's the last round right there. So now I'm going to pull out my tail thread, and if I take my strip and my patch and I just pull on them gently like that, it's going to start to come unzipped from each other. And you just pull out the tail thread just like that. Put your patch away, use it again, and you got this tail thread hanging out here. Now you can go ahead right now and weave that in, or you can wait till you zip it and then weave it in. I'm going to wait. Well, now we want to mount it to our acrylic carrier bead. So I want to line it up so that these two are going to be on the front of my bead, just like that. So you can slip the bead on the carrier bead like this. You can zip it up and then put it on the bead so that it's removable off of there. I don't do that. I put a little glue dot because I don't want it coming apart on the bracelet. It doesn't need much. You can put any kind of dot of glue there that you want, but I actually use these little mini glue dots. These are Stampin' Up! Brand. But I'm going to take my carrier bead and I'm going to put one right in the and make sure your carrier beads are smooth. This one has a little sticking out piece of plastic right there. Just take your scissor and scrape that off. You don't want any sharp edges that's going to cut your thread. Take your glue dot and I'm going to place the bead right in the center of it, so the glue dot is right on the center of the carrier bead. Then I'm going to put another one on the other side, but I'm not going to put it in the center. I'm going to put it kind of off center, because where the center is where I'm going to be zipping, and I don't want my needle to go through and stick into this sticky stuff because that would make a mess. So I'm going to put this so that two of them are on the front. Lay it just like that. I can see through there and see how they are. Press that down, and then this has the sticky dot here. I'm going to fold this up and over into that sticky dot. So this end is now workable, and it's my end I'm going to use to sew and zip together. So I want to join it to this edge. So I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to pick up this bead on the opposite side, just like that. Now I'm going to come back across the gap and I'm going to pick up this bead that's protruding, just like that. Go back across the divide and pick up the next bead that's sticking out. Come back across the divide and pick up the next one over here. Back across the divide. And back across the divide. And you notice how each time I pulled my thread out of the way, because you want to make sure that it's coming straight through there. You don't want any catching on anything else or anything. I'm going to go back across the divide and come out this last bead where my tail thread is and try to hold the tail thread out of the way. Okay, so now I've gone back and forth to each bead. I'm going to pull it a little bit snug to make sure that is correct, and when I'm sure it's correct, I'm going to pull it tight and make sure that they all match. Do that before you do anything else. Make sure that everything is nice and neat and matches. Okay, now I'm just going to repeat the process going back the other way. So I want to go into that first bead, and I can't get over here to this bead to join these two again without stepping down. So I'm going to step down. I'm going to go over to that bead and come back, just like that. I'm going to pull that snug again. Not real tight, you won't be able to get your needles in there. I'm going to come out to the edge and go back in that next one again, just like that. That gets that end joining area really secure. Step over to the left, step over to the right. You notice how I jiggle my needle to try to get it through there. You don't want to force it. These are glass beads. They will break. Step back to the left. I know that this, and it went through that other one anyway, so I'm just going to come back. There we go. I know that this is my edge because I can look at my pattern, that this was the last bead. So this is the one I want to come out of and make sure that I get this area right here really joined together. So I'm going to step over back to the right again, and I'm going to come out that bead, which I know was the last one on this side. I'm going to give it a nice tug. I'm going to go back in to the adjoining bead because this is where it was joined. I'm going to move over one, and you see how there's a little bit of a gap here because this was the edge bead and it kind of pulled it over when I started zipping it. So I want to make sure that I close this gap. So just check all your areas for gaps. So I'm going to move over one. I'm going to come out the whole side. I'm going to come back in this one that I want to close the gap and pull it snugly, and you can see it close the gap there. I'm going to step over, pulling it snug each time. That all looks good now. So I'm going to just step over and go back the opposite direction. When you turn and go back, that's what keeps it from coming unsewn. And sometimes if you pick up, just like that did, it wanted to go through two, so make sure you catch those to make sure you don't do that. You're going to come back out so that you don't skip anything. Step over and go out. Now you can, if you want to, do a slip knot there, but I'm not because it's on the edge and it's where it will show. So I don't want anything that shows. And those look really good, so I'm just going to go in about 2 beads and trim off this thread And I think that's pretty good. I think that's woven in enough. It's not like it's going to get a lot of wear. But so there it is finished. And all you need is, if you have a skinny wrist, it takes about 10 or 11 carrier beads. And these are done with 8mm drooks in between. And just Stretch Magic. And if you're using the plastic carrier beads, your Stretch Magic can actually go up into these holes. You just put a little dot of clear nail polish or nail gel, just because it is less corrosive to the plastic, because it's used to being put on acrylic nails. Drag those up inside that carrier bead and your knots are hidden. And that's how I do my odd count peyote. If you want to learn the original way of doing odd count peyote with the figure 8 turn at the end, I have another video of that that you can find on my website. Thank you for watching. Happy beading.